गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन। आप सभी को मीठी ईद की, ईद उल फितर की सबको बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद। ये ईद बहुत अलग है। ना जाने अब ऐसी कौन कितनी सारी हमको ईद बितानी होंगी, बट फिर भी हम लोग आज के मौके की सैंक्टिटी मनाते हुए, सब लोग खुशियां बांटते हुए, प्रे करते हुए आगे चलते हैं। तो आज का हमारा जो सेशन है, द फ्राइडे सेशन दैट वी हैव इज is about sources of to study medieval Indian history. Although the Sunday talk will also be talking about sources, these are Portuguese sources. Today we're reflecting on our past through the lens of what's happening in how was the past constructed in colonial period and how it was reconstructed or an attempt to re-look at it in the 1960s was done. जैसा कि हम सब हिस्ट्री के स्टूडेंट्स या हिस्ट्री पढ़े हुए लोग जानते हैं कि जो हिस्टोरिकल रियलिटीज होते हैं और हिस्टोरिकल परसेप्शंस होते हैं वो काफी फर्क है। जो है और जो समझते हैं हम वो बहुत डिफरेंट होता है, और खास करके आज के जमाने के लिए, आज की तरह से ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है। सो ये हम सब जानते हैं, और खास करके आजकल की जो हमारे रेजीम है उसके लिए हम लोग सब समझते हैं कि हिस्टोरिकल जो टेक्स होते हैं दे आर गाइडेड बाय आइडियोलॉजिकल कंसिडरेशंस, और ये आज की बात नहीं है, हमेशा से होता आया है। जो इंडियन हिस्टोरिकल राइटिंग है कॉलोनियल नेशनलिस्ट फेज में, वो सपोर्ट की गई थी नेशनल प्रोजेक्ट से। जो नेशनल प्रोजेक्ट जो राइटिंग में था, और वो बहुत ही लिबरल नेशनलिस्ट आइडियोलॉजिकल बेस पे आधारित था। तो उस जमाने का जो लिटरेचर था वो भी उसको सपोर्ट करता गया। एंड ये जो हिस्ट्री थी, ये दिस कैरिड मेनी कॉन्ट्रडिक्शंस रियली, एंड a large part of this history writing was not critically examined. Thus there was a lot of nationalistic, jingoistic, communal elements, and these kind of got intertwined somehow in the historical writing from this period. फिर उसके बाद, the contradictions were sought to be resolved by an attempt of a new breed of historians, particularly in the 1960s, और इसके अंदर JNU, AMU के बहुत सारे professors और involved हैं. So a new approach to write Indian history emerged, which basically wanted to disengage with the earlier historical writing, जो इसके बारे में मैंने अभी आपको बताया, and they wanted to move towards an objective history. So जाहिर सी बात है कि earlier contradictions उन्होंने खोले, उनको समझने की कोशिश की, और बहुत सारे हिस्टोरिकल पर्सनालिटीज जो अर्लियर नेशनलिस्ट फेज में ग्रेट, खास करके मतलब और भी बहुत सारे मुद्दों को लिया उन्होंने, बट ये जो पर्सनालिटीज थे जिनको हम लोग ग्रेट कहते थे, जैसे कि शिवाजी द ग्रेट या महाराणा प्रताप या अकबर, इन सब के बारे में, औरंगजेब, इन सब के बारे में इनको फिर से एक स्क्रूटनाइज किया गया, एक क्रिटिकल हिस्टोरिकल स्क्रूटनी की गई, और फिर उसके बाद समझा गया कि किस तरह से ये लोग जो हिस्टोरिकल रिकॉर्ड्स बनाए थे नेशनलिस्ट, वो इन हीरोज को एक नेशन बिल्डिंग प्रोसेस में यूज करना चाहते थे। और आज की टॉक में हम लोग देखेंगे कि किस तरह से महाराणा प्रताप एक हिस्टोरिकल फिगर हैं, लेकिन उनका एक लाइक इन द हिस्टोरिकल एंड लिटरेरी स्पेसेस एज अ ग्रेट नेशनल हीरो उन्होंने कैसे इंस्पायर किया जनरेशंस को टू सस्टेन द नेशनल मूवमेंट। और फिर हम लोग ज़ाहिर-सी बात है आर्ग्यू भी कर सकते हैं कि अकबर जो एक आइकॉन बन गए न्यू नेशन बिल्डिंग प्रोसेस में, प्रोजेक्ट में इन द 1960s में, वो भी like he was also considered along with Pratap in the Maharana Pratap in the colonial as well as national historical writings. एंड अब उनको इस ज़माने में 1960s में he was shown to be a greater hero than the Rajput prince. There were various assessments of both these historical figures which kept changing in different times. To put these two greats against each other and questioning the greatness of one at the cost of the other is a post-1960 phenomenon. In the nationalist ideological framework, Maharana Pratap was a great. In the 1960 new nation building project framework built on the ideology of secularism, the greatness of Akbar was more pronounced. So ये एक जिसको कहेंगे नीड ऑफ द टाइम, और एक जिसको कहेंगे नीड असेसमेंट के बेसिस पर ये दोनों के साथ ही ग्रेटनेस का बैज लगाया गया। आज हम प्रोफेसर हितेंद्र पटेल के साथ बात करेंगे, जो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ हिस्ट्री रविंद्र भारती यूनिवर्सिटी कोलकाता में हैं, और वो इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एडवांस स्टडी शिमला में फेलो रह चुके हैं अभी हाल फिलहाल में। और उनकी किताबें हैं कम्युनलिज्म इन इंटेलिजेंसिया इन बिहार, जो ओरिएंट ब्लैक स्वॉन ने पब्लिश की थी 2011 में। और उन्होंने सेज पब्लिकेशंस 2017 में एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ मोबिलाइजेशंस ऑफ दलित्स इन बिहार किताब किया। और राउटरलिज ने उनकी 2016 में किताब रोल ऑफ इंटेलेक्चुअल्स एंड हिंदू मुस्लिम डिवाइड in the book that was edited by Mujibur Rahman, Communalism in Post-Colonial India, Changing Contours के ऊपर उन्होंने ये पूरा पेज अपना पूरा का पूरा चैप्टर ऐड किया था। So let's meet him without any further ado, and we will come to learn about who is great and how is this badge of greatness attributed to these people. And I am in conversation today with Professor Hitendra Patel. I'm welcoming him on board. Good evening, sir. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you, Sagupta ji, for introducing the talk. This is a very difficult time, and one actually don't feel like talking about history and all that, because we are all troubled by something about which we can't do anything, just waiting for difficult days to be over. But I'm really inspired by your series, and Professor Rezabi himself was affected by it. Still, the series continued, so that's why I felt like that I should come and contribute from my side.
Professor Rezavi is getting better, and he's on the mend. In fact, we're crossing our fingers and hoping that he'll be there for our finale. And thank you so much कि आपने उनका invitation accept किया, और उनके behalf पर मैं आज आपसे बात करूंगी.
No, thank you very much. I'm relieved now, because I'm really thinking about him. How is he and all that. Coming back to the discussion point, I would like to begin with a quote from a Dutch historian, Peter Gale, and I read out the line which often I feel that one should remember when we talk about history and historical topics. History cannot be conceived and it cannot be written or communicated except from the point of view conditioned by circumstances of the historian. And I'm bringing this view because whenever we talk about the historical reality, we need to understand that historians have to examine those things from the present perspective, present situation and present requirements. And that is why whenever we look back, whenever we try to see the past, we always see it from the present consideration. And that is why I thought that this can be an interesting discussion point, how somebody who had contributions to make, it's up to the historian to examine those evidences and see how far he has contributed or whatever he has done. But how this image of, say, Akbar or Mahana Pratap or Shivaji or Lakshmi Bai and many others have changed with time. And in that process, how the perception about these personalities changed. And the important point which I would like to bring in this discussion is that behind this there were some considerations. Sometimes it had something to do with the spirit of nationalism, which you rightly pointed out, and then there was a process in which Indian history was sought to be seen very differently, where nation building project comes into the play, and historians thought that they might come into the play and contribute from their own side by examining the historical past in a different manner, in a more scientific and very in a critical manner. And so these are the issues. But for my friends, I would say I would like to begin by asking a question. Can we be objective to our heroes? This is a question which can be answered differently. I mean, we are respectful to our great, but what happens once we start taking positions, then there can be a situation when one great is fighting against another great, and in that situation, what will be our role? So, as a dispassionate historian, I would say that whatever facts would tell, I will have to abide by that, and then say the story. I will tell the story. But unfortunately, that is not the case all the time. And in this process, what happens? There are three kind of histories which have emerged in India. One which is definitely we can call formal history, in which we follow what is called scientific method or whatever academic process whereby we actually test all the evidences and then try to say something. So that formal history is something which we are familiar with, and we understand its importance too. But I have been arguing for some time now that apart from this formal history, which is a very recent phenomenon, in India we had two other kind of histories. One remembered by the people, carried by in their memories, and that is one history which has its own history, so to say. I mean, and something which requires a different kind of treatment to their facts and all that. But in between two, there is another kind of history which can be seen as history by some people, and for some others it can be simply a figment of imagination that somebody's story has been told. And I say it as a literary kind of history which has been written by writers. So we have altogether three kind of histories, and these three kind of histories tell about our personalities and processes very different. I mean, different things are there. So I would like to start the story from say late 19th century. And I would say that in late 19th century, while Indian educated class was trying to create some kind of, trying to construct the ideology of nationalism, while doing so, they used all kind of materials, all kind of resources which were available to them in order to arouse a kind of pride in the past. They created new heroes and they tried to inspire the people. And in that process, which I have argued in my book, Communalism and the Intelligentsia, I have tried to argue in my own way that in literature, there was nationalism definitely. And if that is nationalism, there was another kind of ideology which was intertwined with it, interwoven with it, and that was communalism. Normally, when we talk about communalism, we always try to see it a process which actually emerged in 20s, to be precise, after some kind of contestation in the post-Khilafat days. But what I have argued, and I've been arguing for quite some time now, that if you see the process of nationalism and its making in retrospective effect, and then try to see the 19th century some kind of making of the ideology as nationalism, then obviously communalism has a history of its own from late 19th century onwards. And in that process, I come across large number of materials, evidences, which tell the story in a way in which personalities like Mahana Pratap and others are seen as national heroes, and they were fighting against Akbar. I mean, I'm not saying that they were writing with the intention of bringing a kind of divide between Hindus and Muslims. That was not the case. In fact, most of them, they were trying to forge one kind of identity. Unfortunately, they were not very conscious about this Hindu-Muslim divide that way. But somehow, if we can look back to those kind of evidences which had been used by writers, they actually showed Hindu heroes, for example, Mahana Pratap, in such a way that it can easily be seen as a kind of communal history, if I may say so. Because I mean, I'm aware that using communalism also requires some kind of attestation to the intent of the writer, also, which I'm not making. I'm not saying that, but still, I mean, if you read those novels and those plays and all kind of essays, you will find that there is a conscious effort on the part of those writers to put these figures in such a way that they became national hero in the terms which can be called communal if we are sensitive about the use of the term. And that
ये
is
कौन
why
सी novels या कोई एग्जांपल दीजिए, कौन सी novels, कौन सी writing, कौन से
I'm
plays?
coming to that. Let's first argue this point and then
जी.
I'll come. मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूँ क्योंकि it is often forgotten that this Akbar also was brought in the picture as a historical figure in a manner in which people had objections. I mean, we all know that 1917 onwards, जब Smith की किताब आई, then we became more conscious about Akbar. And although Mellison had written 1897, and even before that, there were people who were referring him as a great king and who had done so much and all that. But I'm more concerned about the general reading public. People who are reading history now with a purpose, and the spread of education is taking place. People are using, printed materials more seriously at a broader scale. In that situation, we find that this coming of Akbar after 1917 till say 1930, Akbar was talked about, and Akbar had a history. Akbar was seen as a great ruler, great emperor and all that. That was there. But side by side, the history of Marathas, Rajputs, and more particularly Mahana Pratap and Shivaji, these were discussed by writers very differently. So in those situations, it is not very easy to put one against another, because that was a different age. At that time, most of the people were more concerned about the valor, but the brave. वो शिवाजी वीर थे, महाना प्रताप वीर थे, और आदि सब चीजें चल रही थी. And I'm saying this on the basis of the survey of literature, starting from Bharatendu Harishchandra to say 1920s writers. तो ये सारे जो writers थे, ये लोग देश निर्माण में लगे हुए थे. कम से कम they were trying to awaken the people of India, and that is why they were using all those materials. And here I would bring in, I mean, we all know that. I mean, most of the people who are slightly familiar with the making of nationalism and the use of literature in the process are aware that जो गीत थे राजस्थान के बार्ड्स जो थे, वो उन सब का इस्तेमाल टॉड ने किया था. टॉड की कहानी से फिर ये कहानी बढ़ती चली गई, एंड बंगाली राइटर्स took up. Bankim Chandra is more famous for that, and there are others. A large number of writers took up that, and even in Bharatendu Harishchandra, Neel Devi particularly, we find this clear connection between the understanding of Rajput period through these lenses. But I am more concerned about 1913 onwards, the kind of literature which was produced in Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, and Bengal. At that time, Calcutta was also a very big center of literature and journalism. तो उसमें क्या हो रहा है कि ये जो नया literature आ रहा है, इसमें they are very very categorical on one point, and that is कि जैसे भी हो, इनको जो है, इनके बारे में all kind of superlatives are being used, और इस तरह से उसको पिच किया जा रहा है। मैं एक एग्जांपल मैं रीड आउट करता हूं, यू विल मेक सेंस हाउ थिंग्स वेर सेड। हे भारत के गौरव केतन, आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट, हे भारत के गौरव केतन, स्वाभिमान के शुभ अवतार, हे राजर्षि स्वदेश प्रेम निधि, साहस शौर्य शक्ति आगार, हे प्रताप, हे आत्मत्यागी महाप्रतापी धार्मिक धीर, क्या कोई इस भारतवर्ष में प्रगटेगा फिर तुम सा वीर। I mean, this is one example. I mean, I can read out. I mean, I can multiply any number of examples, and this is becoming. This is not that frequent. Say till up to 1880s, not frequent. There are here and there some references of that kind. Pratap has been seen always as a great hero. But great hero as a hero who fought against an enemy which was very formidable, and for the pride Pratap fought, and for that he was actually appreciated by people, even if he knew that he is not going to win against Akbar. For the dignity he fought, and that is why he can be praised for that. That is something very understandable. But now what is happening, that this Pratap is not representing Rajputana anymore. He is representing the spirit of Bharatvarsh jo lad raha hai, that he is fighting as a hero of India. And in this process, what is interesting and what is to be noticed is that Pratap is becoming a hero of Bengali intelligentsia also. And the great writers were also lured by, attracted towards him as somebody who can be an icon. Later on, this Bengali intelligentsia moved more towards Shivaji, but that is another story, because of the presence of some leading Marathi intellectuals, Deoskar and others, and the presence of some other. Tilak also started coming, and these were things there. But Pratap was also attracted in Bengali intelligentsia. That there are historical evidences. And one of the things I can mention here, there are so many examples, but Rabindranath Tagore and Rashbihari Ghosh. I was flipping through the pages of some of the important writings on Pratap. They were so respectful to Pratap and Chittor that they went to Chittor just to what is written is pilgrimage to that place, to pay their respect for Pratap. And this kind of reverence, this kind of respect for Rajput history and Pratap in particular tells us a story. But now I move to that which is more important for our discussion, because we have to bring somehow on the one side Akbar and another side Mahana Pratap. So in 1920s, what happens? This story is is running at two parallel levels. Historians are not talking about Mahana Pratap, but writers are going praising him like anything. But around 1930, and that is the turning point, around 1930, there is an interesting development. And that interesting development is that some leaders, particularly Jawaharlal Nehru, and some historians who belong to Allahabad school, Tripathi and others, they started seeing the entire process somewhat differently. Akbar is brought into the picture in a very different way, and the entire thing, which has been reviewed by Satish Chandra when he talked about Tripathi and others, that how Akbar was seen as somebody who actually brought the unity in India, and that's why somebody who was fighting against him was actually fighting against that process, and that's why Akbar was seen as somebody who was one kind representing the proto-nationalism, so to say. So in a way, India was getting united politically by Akbar. So in that context, I can say, or everybody would agree, that Pratap's narrative was marginalized. And this marginalization of Pratap narrative had always been there in historical writings, but now when the Indian history is being written more seriously by Indian scholars in 1930s, now the Pratap becomes so marginal in historical accounts that now the people who had thought that Akbar was great, all right, but Pratap was also equally great, in some ways morally superior to Akbar. Those kind of things started to I mean, it was a situation in which one has to pick either this or that. So should I move on, or should you bring something into it in the ongoing discussion? I mean,
No,
should I
no,
continue?
sir. You please go ahead with your talk. हम लोगों के यहाँ questions आएंगे जो हम लोग बाद में लेंगे. Now the floor is completely open to you. So
Okay, okay.
actually आपके talk में तो मतलब नाना गांगुली कह रहे हैं कि राजपूत जीवन संध्या एंड महाराष्ट्र जीवन प्रभात by रोमेश चंद्र दत्त ने भी लिखा था ये. तो
Yeah,
हमें
yeah.
they are all like sort of excited about this topic. और फिर उसके बाद
Okay.
हमारे अली हैदर पूछ रहे हैं कि क्या कहते हैं कि महाराणा प्रताप क्या 7 फीट टॉल थे. So I think a lot of this is Amar Chitra Katha. So so we'll have a lot
No,
of discussion. It's
I
going to be
think
fun.
that is something very different. But at this point, what I'm trying to argue is that this making of this binary is very crucial, and how this
Hmm.
binary came into existence. Very careful. Jawaharlal Nehru is talking about Akbar. Obviously, you understand that he's talking about Ashok, Akbar in a very different way. But he was very careful, and I think Jawaharlal Nehru's writing on it is to be seen as an example of how careful he was about this sensitive issue. I read out that line which attracts everybody's attention. Akbar won many people to his side and kept them there, but he failed to subdue the proud and indomitable spirit of Rana Pratap of Mewar in Rajputana, who preferred to lead a hunted life in the jungle rather than give even formal allegiance to one he considered a foreign conqueror. And thereafter there is nothing. So he actually he brought Akbar as a unifier, Akbar as somebody who he was the real man who actually trying to forge a kind of political unity, but he was sensitive enough not to dismiss him as somebody who was not doing uh, his job as an Indian. So that is Nehru. But others were not that careful. And here, I think one has to take into cognizance some other kind of writings also. I have chosen 2-3 writers who are by no means, in any kind of consideration, cannot be called communal writers deliberately. There are so many others about whom I can refer to who have written something like this. But I'm deliberately choosing somebody who is an icon himself. And that is Surikant Tripathi Nirala. Many of you might be aware of his status as a great progressive poet. He wrote a historical novel around that time, in which the novel name is Maharana Pratap, and in which he wrote something. I read out 1 or 2 lines. You will understand what kind of respect he had about Maharana Pratap. जिस वीर महापुरुष ने अकबर का सामना किया, हिंदू की कीर्ति पताका मुगलों के हाथों में नहीं जाने दी. Now he says he narrates his story, and there are only two stories I will mention here. One is, we all know that there was a Rajput who was with Akbar, and at one point of time when Rana Pratap was under great distress and he was unable to bear the sight of the, I mean, problems of his own dear people and he wrote a letter to Akbar, which indicated that he will not continue the war against him. So that brought great joy, understandably, in the court. But this letter, which was actually written by Mahana Pratap, was to be shown to Prithvi Singh, who actually had to confirm whether it was actually written by Mahana Pratap or not. In that letter, it is very obvious that it is written by Mahana Pratap. But that man, the proud man, Rajput man, Prithvi Singh, he wrote a letter to Mahana Pratap that you should not have done this, because in that letter he writes, आप ही हिंदुओं के मुकुटमणि और मुसलमानों की सत्ता का तिरस्कार करने वाले हैं, आपके विचलित हो जाने पर देश और धर्म की मर्यादा जाती रहेगी. This story has been told many times, and in fact, in some of the what is called Mahakavya, the story is told in different manner by somebody else. These words are being uttered that even if we are with Akbar, we respect you as the savior of our dharma, as Hindu, as Rajput. But what caught my attention, everybody should take notice of it, that somebody like Nirala has had a very poor opinion about Akbar, and that is something which can surprise anybody. What he writes, I quote, अकबर चरित्र के बड़े दुबले थे, अपनी विषय वासना को चरितार्थ करने के लिए जाल बिछाया था, जो औरत उनकी नजर चढ़ जाती थी उसका छुटकारा पाना मुश्किल हो जाता था, छल से, बल से या कौशल से वे उसके सतीत्व को अवश्य ही नष्ट कर देते थे. And I can refer to that book, in which what happened ultimately when the molester, which is Akbar, is trying to molest a Hindu nari, Hindu lady, and ultimately what happened? Ultimately, because of some other developments, the great emperor was shown as begging for mercy to that Hindu lady, whereby it was said that Akbar was repenting, and he said that he should be pardoned and all that. This is written by Nirala as a political novel. It is written political, historical novel. Sorry, and not political, historical novel. The entire book can be referred as one kind of example where you can see that Akbar was seen as somebody who was an imperialist, and Mahana Pratap was seen as somebody who was fighting for independence and for Indian nationalism, so to say. One can raise this question, and many persons have said that use of nation in nationalism is to be objected, because there was no nation as such. And somebody may say that there was a nation which was conceived very differently by the people of India, and so on and so forth. I'm not going into that details. I'm putting those facts before friends, so that I can say that this polarization has a history of its own, which has nothing to do with the historical understanding or assessment of these two historical figures. I could have gone into another kind of literature which is available very easily. Jayashankar Prasad had written Peshola ki Pratidhwani, which should be Pechola, but he knew it. He was an outsider. He didn't understand that, and so he wrote Peshola Ki Pratidhwani, and then he wrote Maharana Ka Mahatva. And in those writings, it is very clear that he was totally in Maharana Pratap's side, and he was trying to say that Akbar was imperialist. Akbar was not just, and the war against him by Rajputs under the leadership of Maharana Pratap was some kind of a war in which independence of people was at stake, etc., etc. But what is interesting in that, at the end, Jaishankar Prasad had shown that Akbar realizes his mistake, and he said to his subordinates that this war we cannot win. We should not have fought against him, and he decided to move from that area where the struggle against or the search for Maharana Pratap was going on, and he decided to quit in a way. So in a way he was defeated. He was defeated in the sense that he was not actually defeated in the battlefield, but he was defeated in the sense that he had to leave the campaign, and Maharana Pratap remained free, and he did not surrender before Akbar, mighty Akbar, and that is how Akbar's campaign failed against Maharana Pratap. Now, without going into further details or some other examples, I would say that there are huge amount of literature available, and recently I was reading something which I would like to bring to your notice, and that is something which tells us how this is a kind of summary of not historian in that sense, but he has written many books on history, and he was a respected man. D.R. Mankekar, biographer of Lal Bahadur Shastri, and he has written many books on history. He wrote a book, Mewar Saga, and I'm quoting from that book. Pratap became the pure ideal of Indian nationalism from Shivaji to Subhash Chandra Bose. To Shivaji, Pratap was a model. He obtained a portrait of Rana Pratap from Raj Singh, Pratap's grandson. Rabindranath Tagore and Rash Bihari Ghosh made a pilgrimage to Mewar to pay homage to Pratap's memory. I had already referred to that. People named their children after Pratap. Some of the best plays in Bengali, Telugu and Kannada have been woven around Rana Pratap's romantic career and valiant struggle for independence. Indian literature is replete with plays, novels and poems on Pratap's fight for liberty against the grasping hand of Akbar's imperialism. Now, I'm quoting this as an example. How Akbar, against Akbar, this struggle of Maharana Pratap was seen so sympathetically, not only by writers of 19th century, but also by serious progressive writers, as well as those writers who are familiar with history. They have done some important work. They are familiar with historical method, because he's written a book on 1962 war, and his biography of Lal Bahadur Shastri is also crucial. He's written so many books. Now these people are writing to prove in a way that Rana Pratap's struggle was a struggle for Indian independence, or Indians in Indian nationalism, so to say. He was an icon of Indian nationalism, and so on and so forth. Now I come to the other side, because that is also very crucial in this whole take. Now I have referred already to Nehru's take. There is one historian, S.R. Sharma, who had done a book on. He's a historian. He had written a book on Akbar, and he wrote another book in 1960. I have in my paper I have already discussed how he tried to see Akbar as somebody who was unifying India, and this was in a way extension of what Jawaharlal Nehru and Allahabad historians had been thinking. So this is how S.R. Sharma, Tripathi, and others were seeing Akbar as somebody who was unifying India, and that is why this story of Maharana Pratap got marginalized. Now, in between these two, there were people who thought something very differently. In this connection, there are so many other names, but I would mention only two names. And one is, interestingly, Rahul Sankrityayan. Rahul Sankrityayan wrote something which is different from others. I am quoting only one line, which is interesting. प्रताप अपनी कुर्बानियों के लिए प्रातः स्मरणीय रहेंगे. Pratap should be revered for his valor, but had he been successful, Mewar would not have been a part of Indian Republic today. I think this is a very remarkable line, very remarkable, because he had that sense that he was a great, very brave, very courageous man, and he didn't think about his any eventuality. Even if he loses his life, he was ready to sacrifice for his independence and all that. But he also is aware that in that historical context, if he would have been successful, Rajputana would not have been the part of Indian Republic. This is Rahul Sankrityayan. Also, I would say that Ram Manohar Lohia had been saying this many times, that those people who were brave, but they were not intelligent enough to read the political situation correctly, they had done great damage. And in that connection, if you read closely his culprits of partition, Vibhajan ke Gunehgar, in that if you read closely, he is also of the opinion that even if Rana Pratap was a great warrior, he was a great man, but he was unable to comprehend the political realities of the time. Now all these things are happening. I mean, R.P. Tripathi's version I have mentioned, and I would refer you to Satish Chandra's take on R.P. Tripathi's understanding of Akbar. While S.R. Sharma is praising Akbar as a unifier, at one point, although he says that as a man he was greater than an emperor, he was a great man. S.R. Sharma says, and in Tripathi, what Satish Chandra says, that Akbar was as great as any Indian could have been. This is significant. He was, in a way, he was saying that he was the greatest Indian we ever had. This is what is coming to us through Satish Chandra. Now, at this point, I am just reminded of what Smith had said about Akbar. He said, and I have mentioned in my paper also, and let me, for those who have not read my paper, he says that Akbar was a foreigner, Not even iota of his blood was Indian. And he said that Mughal is another name of Mongol. This is Smith. So all these kind of things are there. He was a foreigner, says a historian. He was a unifier, says another historian. And another historian is saying that he was the greatest Indian we ever had, could have. So now in this kind of situation, it's very clear that 1940 onwards, there was a conscious attempt to make Akbar more important as somebody who was an ideal man who represented the unity of India, and he was doing something which was politically very significant. He was uniting India politically. This kind of writing is gaining some prominence among the historians, historical writings. Then came Mughal Azam, and I'm mentioning Mughal Azam because Mughal Azam had a great impact on this understanding of memory of Akbar. In a way, there is some truth in it that for an Indian, even educated one, Akbar means Prithviraj Kapoor. His persona and everything became so very important in the imagination of Indian people that Akbar became so very familiar figure to average Indian literate or semi-literate people. And I think this is something about which historians should also take notice of. Because I have been arguing here and elsewhere also that we have to take into cognizance other kind of histories also. And in that context, let me bring one something which may be interesting for some people, that when S.R. Sharma's book on Akbar was published in 1960, he was a historian who had done some book on Akbar in 1940. In 1960, when this book was published from Bombay, very good book, very pocket book. It was published at cheap price, and it actually had an objective of showing Akbar as a great national icon. And the cover page had a picture of Akbar, and that picture was of Prithviraj Kapoor. So Prithviraj Kapoor became the face of Akbar. So these are the things which I am bringing because the image, the perception about Akbar can take into consideration all these things which are happening there. But then came about which Shagufta ji was talking. 1961 is extraordinarily important in this context, because 1961 was the year in which a symposium was organized in the Indian History Congress, Calcutta, 1961 December. And I think that is a very crucial and very important history congress in Calcutta, where two young historians spoke on this nation building project and the role of historian in it. Because, I mean, for some of us, it is very clear that there was some kind of an attempt or some kind of efforts were being made from government side also, that historians should play their role in demonstrating or in trying to show to the people the unity of India, which had a historical past or historical kind of linkages. So historians' job was to provide the unity point so as to prove that India had been a nation all through. This kind of some kind of motivation or some kind of orientation was there when the politicians tried to influence historians for writing a particular kind of history in which Indian nationhood was to be established and historically validated. very young historians, then very young. One was Romila Thapar and another was Irfan Habib. These two historians had given extraordinary presentations, and modern part was dealt by Parthasharthi. He was also good, but the real punch, the real force was brought by these two historians. And if we include the presidential address of S. Gopal, with it we really find some kind of a break in among the historians. 1961, where it was said by Gopal that we should be confident enough to write about the history on the basis of documents more confidently. Then Romila Thapar said that there was a time when historians wrote history with an intent to arouse the people, or people's unity was being established, and that was a different age. But now we can be more critical. We can write different kind of history, and we can disown the dubious word was used by Romila Thapar, dubious history which was produced by our own historians. So these are the claims which they were making. But the most powerful speech was, the presentation was made by Irfan Habib, and he said, it's very interesting, and he dealt with what kind of history should be written, who has written with some communal interpretation and communal angle and all that. He said all that, but ultimately where he ends his presentation is that we should write history in such a way that people in the school and colleges should be aware of what actually happened in past. And he said, very very important line, he writes there that the real mind of battles will be fought in the schools and colleges. 1961. So this is something which I think very very important. Now, if you want to write a scientific history, which he is very confident that scientific history can now be written, and he said that last 50 years, in fact Romila Thapar also said that last 50-60 years we have written a different kind of history. Now we have the resources, so now we should be confident enough to write different kind of history, in which if we use those things, then obviously those kind of dubiousness, those kind of history in which these figures became so very crucial, so very important as nation makers or icons, obviously will not be given that much importance. And thereafter began a kind of struggle. And in the textbook writings, in the what is called scientific history writing, in the academic writing, Akbar became so very important that Maharaja Pratap's story became absolutely marginalized, and that is where I think one can actually pose these two narratives. जिसको बोलते हैं ना आमने सामने. Now, as a historian, one can obviously take side and say that those kind of narratives in which Akbar, Maharaja Pratap was seen as a man virtuous and very dignified. He didn't treat women without dignity, and all kind of stories there. Similarly with Shivaji and all other Hindu heroes. So a different kind of image for Akbar. Akbar could be ruthless, he could be lecherous, and he was after all an imperialist. This kind of literature is there, this kind of history is also there. So I'm making a kind of presentation in which I'm saying that these two have existed in India, And historians after 1940 in general and after 1960 in particular tried to assert themselves as academic historians whose writing should be taught in the schools and colleges. And if you see, I mean, there was no problem. He was also great. Akbar was also great. Both were seen, as greats. No problem over there. But once this contest for the battle of minds was brought in school and college and syllabus, and then the academic history was sought to be put in center, and other kind of histories were marginalized, then obviously Rana Pratap's story got marginalized. But fortunately or unfortunately, the situation is that academic historians do not have that kind of a reach among the people. People are still carrying those stories about their heroes, which had been there in circulation for ages. So it's a very difficult situation where historians are telling the story differently, and the people have a different kind of history, and writers are also close to what is called popular memory. So what can we do? Now I would like to conclude by saying that let us not be guided by our own sources all the time, because sources can be manipulated, sources can be presented in such a way that it's very strange kind of a feeling I had once when leading historians were presenting facts as if, they were presenting facts that Haldi Ghati battle was not won by Akbar. It was actually won by Maharana Pratap. And they were presenting facts, and they had different kind of sources, and those sources are also sources, and that is important. So with your kind of sources, you are telling the story in one way, and another historian is presenting the entire history very differently from other kind of sources. It's a battle between two set of sources, and one set of sources tell one story, and another set of sources tell another story. So what can be done? I would like to conclude on this point that history has to take cognizance of the fact that there are can you hear me? Yes, I'm concluding in 1 minute or so. So historians must take into cognizance that there are different kind of histories, and those different kind of histories are ultimately put before the public, the readers, and the academia at 3 levels. So I repeat it, and because this is, I'm very worried about our future, because history, if we do not understand that academia produces one kind of history, writers produce another kind of history, and in popular domain, a third kind of history is there. So in this kind of situation, we have to take note of the fact that films, stories, plays, popular memory, everything take their historical icons very differently from the way we take it as historians. What is called formal historians. People belonging to formal history production. So somehow these things are to be interlinked, and let us create a kind of dialogue in which we try to understand why this kind of memory had been there in circulation for so many years. How this particular memory, which is guiding the people of a particular region for such a long time. And I'm reminded all the time these days of Mark Bloch, who wrote The Royal Touch. History of even bad faith or misconception, अंधविश्वास का भी एक इतिहास हो सकता है. We have to understand why people of Germany were unable to comprehend that Jar could lose a battle. If Mark Bloch can try to understand this state of mind of peasants of Germany, the battle is over, First World War is over, and people are unable to understand that Jar can lose. How can you complain against those people who cannot accept that their hero, Mahana Pratap, could not lose a battle? So these are the things which we historians should try to understand, that what is there, why people are. Here there are many things which may come up during the discussion, but I would like to conclude with this, that let us think about histories of different varieties, and also do not dismiss all those histories because their sources are not recognized by us, certified by us. Sometimes they don't even need any source to say something, and they are heard. Today itself, I found a book. I tell you, I found a book in which it was published by leading publisher of India in English, written by a Bengali writer, and she says that Humayun defeated Sher Shah in 1555. I don't understand how these things are being circulated, and people are reading that. It's a hit on Kindle. What will you do? Can you hear me? My presentation is complete, but picture is frozen, so I will have to rejoin in order to. Or should I continue like this?
I think you. In the meantime, I'll take up questions. You can rejoin.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be nice to see you. Talking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so while Professor Patel rejoins, I want to thank you all for being here. I'm going to take up questions one by one. I find this question very interesting because this is a question which a lot of us may have. In fact, this is something I believed for the longest time as a student or even as a younger um, child who was reading Amar Chitrakatha. So, waiting for Sir to rejoin, and I think he will. I can see him joining. While Sir joins, I'm going to tell you about the Sunday lecture. On Sunday, we at 8 o'clock, we will have Dr. Radhika Chadda, who will be talking to us about Portuguese sources and to study medieval history. So we will have her. And then on the next week, we have Dr. Nandini Chatterjee, who will be talking to us about household archives as a source of Mughal history. Sir, you'll have to reconnect. Sir, you'll have to reconnect with your mic and your camera. So the finale talk is by Dr. Nandini Chatterjee, and she will be talking to us about household archives as sources of Mughal history. This is again at 8 o'clock, and she'll be joining us from the UK. And then, of course, I have just received a beautiful poster by Professor Rezavi. We are going to be back for our season 2 after the finale talk. We will let you know when this is going to be in June or July. We will let you know with a new series, a new look. And for those of you who are here with us, you can share the word with your friends. And I think If you have any other questions, you can type them in now. Dr. Lakshmikant Mishra has asked questions.
Yes, I'm back.
Yes, sir. ओके सर, ये क्वेश्चन है जो मैं जानना चाहती हूँ, और एक्चुअली ये काफी सिंपलिस्टिक है, लेकिन इसके पीछे बहुत बड़ी जिसको कहेंगे एक मिथ है कि इज इट ट्रू दैट द हाइट ऑफ महाराणा प्रताप वाज ओवर 7 feet एंड 5 इंच टॉल, 7.5 फुट थे वो, और वो 80 किलोग्राम का भाला और 2 तलवारें जो 208 किलोग्राम की थी टोटल वो ले सकते थे, और उनका आर्मर जो था वो 72 किलोग्राम का था। सर, आपकी आवाज आपने म्यूट कर रखा है।
हाँ, बिकॉज ये जो मिथ मेकिंग है ना, ये इंटीग्रल पार्ट ऑफ दिस होल फेनोमेना। तो क्या होता है ना कि जब हम लोग देखते हैं कि महाराणा प्रताप का जो मतलब जो हाइट है, अपने 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 आइकन को हम लोग बहुत लंबा चौड़ा देखना चाहते हैं, जो 10 लोगों को कंधे पे उठा के चल सके। इस तरह की मिथ मेकिंग सबके साथ होती है। ये तो महाराणा प्रताप के बारे में बहुत पॉपुलर किस्म का मामला है, ये दोनों साइड से हुआ है। आई टेक द स्टोरी फ्रॉम अनदर एंगल। जब मुगले आजम फिल्म बन रही थी, एंड दिस इज ऑथेंटिकेटेड बाय राज थापर, शी राइट्स इन हर मेमोर, आई मीन ऑटोबायोग्राफी, तो उसमें उन्होंने लिखा है कि वो लोग मुगले आजम की शूटिंग देखने गए, और मुगले आजम की शूटिंग के समय पृथ्वीराज कपूर जो थे बहुत रोबस्ट थे और रोबीले आदमी थे। तो हमारे जो के आसिफ साहब थे वो तो बहुत ही मतलब क्या कहना चाहिए, असली चीज होनी चाहिए और असली सेट को ऐसे लगाएंगे। तो उन्होंने अकबर जो पहनते थे वो जो आर्मर था वो सब ले करके वो ओरिजिनल लेके आए थे कि उनको पहनाया गया। वो कुर्सी पे बैठे और उसके ऊपर उनको पहनाया गया। तो उसके बाद सब लोग विस्मित हो गए कि पृथ्वीराज कपूर वाज अनेबल टू स्टैंड, वो खड़े नहीं हो पा रहे हैं, इतना वजन हो गया उनका कि पृथ्वीराज। तो लोगों ने राज थापर हैज रिटन दैट अकबर वाज मस्ट नॉट हैव बीन एज इतने शक्तिशाली तो नहीं रहे होंगे कि पृथ्वीराज कपूर उठ ही नहीं पा रहे, पंजाबी आदमी इतना खड़ा नहीं हो पा रहे। तो आई मीन दैट आंसर्स योर क्वेश्चन। दीज थिंग्स आर इन सर्कुलेशन फॉर सो मेनी पीपल। So I mean, Maharana Pratap was a strong man. That is understandable because all the narratives talk about, I mean, और जितनी कहानियां बार्ड्स वगैरह हैं सब में उनका जो वो जो चेहरा है, रोबीलापन है, वो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है। और जो ड्राइंग्स वगैरह भी उनके बारे में आई है ना, उसमें भी उनका लंबा कद है। जैसे एक गुफा में एक चित्र है जिसमें कि वो चित्र बनाया गया है, उसमें वो ही सीन एज अ वेरी टॉल मैन। तो लंबे हो सकते हैं, 6.5 7.5 ना सही 6.5 हो, लेकिन लंबे आदमी थे, मजबूत आदमी थे और वीर थे, इसमें कोई शक नहीं। लेकिन ये सारी कहानियां कि इतने किलो का वो उठाते थे, I don't think that is very important, but ये कहानियां दोनों तरफ से चलती हैं, ये भी मैं कहना चाहता हूँ
जी। तो ये बहुत अहम चीज थी जो मिथ मेकिंग की है।
मैं एक बात जोड़ दूं, हम लोगों में से कितने ऐसे हैं जो अकबर के रूप में मुबारक को देखना चाहते थे, जो रियली मुबारक, अब वो अनारकली वाली मुबारक जो मुबारक है वो थे असली अकबर की पर्सनालिटी के नजदीक के। लेकिन हम लोग सभी याद करते हैं पृथ्वीराज कपूर को, उनकी रोबीली आवाज, उनका वो चेहरा। तो दीज थिंग्स डू हैपन। I hope I have answered your question. Yeah.
सर, मिर्जा हसनैन पूछते हैं कि क्या अकबर महाराणा प्रताप की इज्जत करते थे? और जैसे हम लोग कहानियों में पढ़ते हैं कि सलादीन और रिचर्ड लायन हार्ट के बारे में, तो ये किस हद तक?
I think it's a good question because देखिए, मैं तो अकबर के बारे में बहुत ज्यादा नहीं जानता, लेकिन जो मैंने पढ़ा है उनके ऊपर जो कुछ लिखा गया है 19th सेंचुरी और 20th सेंचुरी, वो जो मैं पढ़ रहा था, तो वन थिंग इज फॉर श्योर कि वो बहुत ही जेनरस आदमी थे, जेनरस व्यक्ति थे। उन्होंने वीरों का सम्मान किया है और इसके बहुत सारे प्रमाण आप लोग देखेंगे। और इन कथाओं में भी जो उन सपोजिटली उनके जो शत्रु हैं वो लिख रहे हैं, जो राणा प्रताप को हीरो मानते हैं, वो भी ये बात कहते हैं कि अकबर बादशाह जो है वो प्रभावित हो गए, अकबर भी प्रभावित हो गए। मतलब ये कहानी है, लेकिन अकबर को बहुत छोटा, बहुत कम लोगों ने अकबर को बहुत मीन माइंडेड या खराब दिखाया, लेकिन वो अगर राणा प्रताप की इज्जत करते होंगे तो ये बहुत विश्वास योग्य बात है। और इसके प्रमाण भी हैं, क्योंकि ये जो कहा गया कि जब उनको अच्छा नहीं लग रहा था कि एक उनके सामने ना राजपूत जो है सरेंडर ना करे, लेकिन उन्होंने अंत में वहां से जाना उचित समझा। और आई थिंक अकबर वाज नॉट अंडर प्रेशर टू लीव दैट प्लेस, ही वाज bit generous also. He understood that this man is different kind of man. So I would go by that he respected all brave people, and every great emperor must show this kind of attitude. ये मुझे लगता है कि अकबर was simply it could have been like that. जो बीरबल को पसंद कर सकता है, इतने सारे नवरत्नों को रख सकता है, तो I think I would like to accept what he said about Akbar. He was not a ruthless man that way, because historically भी जब हेमू को मारने की बात आई थी ना, तो हेमू को भी वो मारना नहीं चाहते थे, जब because he had fallen. So उस वक्त जो है, जो बैरम खान ने ही उनको तलवार लेकर के मारा है। ये तो हिस्टोरिकली एक एक्सेप्टेबल है ना, जो जब हेमू गिर गए नीचे तो उनको मारने के लिए अकबर नहीं चाह रहे थे कि उनको गला काट दिया जाए, because he was helpless. तो बैरम खान ने हाथ से तलवार लेकर के उनकी गर्दन काटी है। तो he might have been
तो आवाज चली गई, तो आपकी आवाज चली गई। म्यूट पर हैं सर आप।
फिर क्या करूं?
अब ठीक है।
हाँ ठीक है, तो मैं इसको मानने को तैयार हूँ। I would love to accept that, although I'm not an expert of that.
सृष्टि हैं जो बीए की स्टूडेंट है, वो पूछना चाहती हैं कि सर, हाउ डू वी डील विद एन ऑडियंस that visualizes history in terms of hero worship, and how do we tackle it to bring a more objective historical consciousness? How can we highlight the positives, negatives of a historical figure without disbalance? सर फिर आवाज गायब हो गई। एक बार और अपना माइक ऑन ऑफ करके देखिएगा। अब ठीक है, अब ठीक है।
So I think it's a very good question, or we are all grappling with this issue, because history of one kind is not enough. हिस्ट्री को बहुत सारे रोल प्ले करने होते हैं। कभी कभी वो मेमोरी कैरियर होता है, कभी कभी वो एक सूदिंग एक इम्पैक्ट भी रखता है, कभी कभी वो गाइड के रूप में भी काम करता है। सो एज ए हिस्टोरियन वी नीड टू थिंक अबाउट फैक्ट्स, ऑब्वियसली we need to be objective as far as possible, realizing that objectivity is impossible ultimately. But what I'm trying to underline is that you're right, that we have large number of people in the society, and if we want to make history relevant to them, we need to be sensitive about their own collective memory. And that can be done in a very creative way. I will again draw your attention to Jawaharlal Nehru, how Jawaharlal Nehru dealt with that. He said what was needed to be told about that period, and still he was a bit sensitive about the memory of the people, and this is how we actually negotiate with this situation. We have no future as a historian if we go to Calcutta and start being very critical to Subhash Chandra Bose or Rabindranath Tagore. If you go to Jaipur and start talking about critical things about Mahana Pratap, I don't think you will be listened. So first thing, ensure that historians do enjoy certain kind of acceptance, and for that we have to be a bit flexible also, and sensitive. I would say sensitive would be the right word, because memories can be of different kinds. and different memories need different kind of treatment. So I mean, we have to adjust ourselves. Yeah.
Sir, Dr. Lakshmikant Mishra from Orissa is asking us, can you explore the available vernacular tracks to understand Rana Pratap and Akbar as available in Rajputana, as you're drawing most your drawing trajectory of historiography mostly from elitist perception.
Yes. Mishra ji, you are right that this I'm dealing with the perceptions merely, and obviously this is a limitation of my presentation. But still, I would say that this is also important. And sources are available, but those sources are available in a different form, and that is important. In Rajputana history, I mean, I am aware that large number of sources are available in Bikaner archives. Large number, and most of those materials are now being available online also, and they are very cooperative. I mean, if you want to consult those sources, you can go and, I mean, Dilbag Singh and others have worked there. So I personally went there and found a huge amount of sources. Whether all those sources relate to Rana Pratap or not, I cannot tell you, but sources are available and those sources are rarely consulted. So I would advise you to go to those archives and see how much we can actually get from there. And I think we need not be always talking in terms of these great heroes and emperors. We need to write more about social and economic history or cultural history of that region. There are huge amount of materials waiting for historians, but obviously people are not interested in those histories. People are more interested in this kind of what is called elitist history or all that. But I think huge materials are available in those archives. At least Bikaner I can tell because I have seen those. I had seen those kind of things.
Okay, so Professor Rizavi says to Shrishti, stick to accepted sources of history and your problems would ease. Okay, so I am going to actually, Dr. Mishra also says that there was a lot of, were there any cheap bazaar literature available on Rana Pratap and Akbar? These literature were produced in large quantities in 1930s in northern and eastern India. Lots
I
of
think
those.
I've already spoken on that I don't
Yes.
see it as Bajar literature. Different literature is there on Rana Pratap and Akbar. Different kind of literature, and those literature should it be brought in history or not is something about which Professor Rezavi has a viewpoint. I may have a different viewpoint, but the thing
Yes.
is that once something is accepted by millions of people as it is closer to the their own remembered history, then as a historian we should be allowed to see that differently also. I mean, this is how I take it.
Great.
Only accept, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think एक और क्वेश्चन है जो मैं लेना चाहूंगी विद्यानिधि छाबड़ा, क्या आपको लगता है कि विजेता और पराजित का इतिहास अलग होता है और इतिहास विजेता के नजरिए से लिखा जाता है?
छाबड़ा जी, ये तो बहुत ही ऑब्वियस है कि अंग्रेजों ने लिखा तो अपने तरीके से लिखा, और उन्होंने तो हम लोगों को यही समझाया कि उन्होंने हम लोगों को सभ्य बनाया, हम लोग तो असभ्य थे, अंगूठा छाप थे। तो विजेता का नजरिया होता है, लेकिन विजित के नजरिए में भी फर्क होता है। आई वुड लाइक टू सबमिट कि जो लोग हारे हैं उनके भी बहुत सारे की हिस्ट्रीज होती हैं, और जो जीते हुए होते हैं उनकी भी कई तरह की हिस्ट्रीज होती हैं। सो वी शुड बी केयरफुल अबाउट that there can be different kind of histories even from those people, I mean those sections which we consider as victors. English people have not written one kind of history. They wrote differently. So there is no such thing which demarcate the history of the victors and history of the vanquished. There can be good history from that quarter also, and there can be some acceptable history from this quarter also. So we have to be judicious about it and try to mix the right kind of stuff to find a balanced history. Yeah.
सूरज कुमार पूछते हैं, इसमें कोई शक नहीं कि अकबर और महाराणा प्रताप लोगों की स्मृति में है, और जैसा आपने संकेत किया है, इसमें पॉपुलर सोर्सेस ज्यादा प्रभावी हैं। ऐसे में इतिहासकार वस्तुनिष्ठ न होकर एक खास तरह का पक्ष ले तब समस्या है, और तथ्य और सृजित इतिहास में फर्क करना मुश्किल हो जाता है। सामान्य पाठक के लिए तथ्य तक पहुंचने के साधन क्या हो सकते हैं? क्या एक इतिहास निरे तथ्य का और एक व्याख्या का हो सकता है, ताकि कम से कम तथ्य में द्वैतता हो ना हो?
ये बहुत ही कॉम्प्लिकेटेड प्रश्न है, लेकिन जो मैं इसमें समझ पाता हूँ, देखिए ये हम लोगों की सबकी समस्या है, और ये समस्या इतनी गंभीर हो गई है कि अभी हम लोगों के पास विकल्प नहीं रह गया है। हम लोगों को बदलना होगा। अगर इतिहास की रक्षा करना चाहते हैं तो या तो प्यूरिटन हो जाए और हम कहेंगे भाई दुनिया जाए किसी तरफ जाए, हम तो वही इतिहास लिखेंगे, और भले इसको पढ़ने वाले 5 लोग हों, जानने वाले 5 लोग होंगे, हम उसी इतिहास को लिखेंगे। मुझे लगता है कि इतिहास का एक बड़ा सामाजिक रोल होता है। इतिहास एक युद्ध की, मुझे हमेशा ये लगता है कि इतिहास कोई मतलब ये ऐसी चीज है ना, इतिहास एक हमारे सामाजिक परिवर्तन और सामाजिक आर्थिक राजनीतिक लड़ाई का हिस्सा है। सो हम लोगों को इतिहास को इतना व्यापक बनाना होगा कि उस विमर्श में जो एक्सेप्टेड सोर्सेज वाली हिस्ट्री है वो तो रहे। मैं तो हमेशा कहता हूं कि वो हिस्ट्री हम छोड़ेंगे नहीं, वो हमारी असली थाती है जिसको हम लोग कहते हैं, वो तो रहे। लेकिन और भी जो भांति की हिस्ट्रीज जो यहाँ वहाँ अपना प्रभाव फैला रही है, उसके मुकाबले भी मैं यहाँ इरफान हबीब की बात से पूरी तरह से सहमत हूँ कि ये जो बैटल ऑफ माइंड्स होता है, तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि बैटल ऑफ माइंड्स जो है वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ सिलेबस में है ऐसा नहीं है, स्कूल कॉलेज में नहीं है, कैंटीन में भी इसकी लड़ाई चलती है, और क्लब में भी चलती है, और स्ट्रीट में भी चलती है। तो हिस्ट्री एवरीवेयर। सॉरी,
व्हाट्सएप पे भी चलती है।
हाँ, बिल्कुल सही कहा आपने। तो मैं कहना ये चाहता हूँ कि लेट अस बी अवेयर ऑफ दैट वी हैव अ ह्यूज रोल इन दिस एंटायर प्रोसेस, बिकॉज एवरीथिंग इज डन इन द नेम ऑफ हिस्ट्री। Unless we sanctify and unless we intervene there, just because these things are not in our purview, then it's, I think we are not doing enough for as a historian.
बहुत से सवाल हैं, मैं तुरंत लेती जाती हूँ सबके सब जल्दी। कृष्ण कुमार मंडल जी पूछते हैं, प्रोफेसर पटेल, why medieval kings have been repeatedly recollected in literary sources rather than other sources?
Krishna Kumar Mandal ji is a historian and very good historian. He should also answer my question कि ऐसा क्यों है, why people so many writers of 19th century are trying to say nasty things about Muslim rulers. I think there was some kind of a pressure on Hindu psyche of 19th century literati that they found the present oppressive. And I think I would like to accept that in 19th century, the writers who emerged in that scenario, they were representing the Hindu fear of Muslims in some way or the other. And that is something which has to be recognized. So all the time we should not say that they are saying these things because they were communal. So what? If the majority of the people become communal, how can you defend secular history? This is something which you have to understand. A secular history can survive only if the society remains secular. Otherwise, you can go on with secular history and people become more and more communal. So I would like to say that let us try to understand why they are so obsessed about Muslim rulers and medieval rulers and all that. There is very strange kind of division that ancient period was great and medieval period we had fallen and Muslims came and all that. This is something which we all acknowledge. We all acknowledge. Even Savarkar said. Savarkar's book I was reading recently. I found that everybody has a problem with medieval period, and I think in my limited understanding of it is on it would be that for that to some extent British historians are also responsible. We British historians are very responsible for this painting Muslim period as something very dark and all that. I would like to submit to you, sir, at the lower rung. I tell you, I've seen enough material on that. In literature also, we find large number of sources which tell us the story in a very complicated manner. Hindus were not against Muslims at the lower rungs. I tell you, on the basis of some of the readings, Hindus and Muslims at the lower level had great interactions, historical memory, in which they jailed very well socially. I mean, otherwise, it was a struggle of a different kind, and in that representation, these Muslims rulers and medieval period was painted the way you described. So it is quite complicated. So I would, as a historian, I would say that we need to be a bit careful about it in dealing with that.
Here is a very interesting question. The aim of learning lessons from the past is actually learning lessons from meta-narratives written by historians and others. What would it mean to live beyond history and ethics? The text is thus polemical and partisan that is an engagement with other ways of positioning certain objects of inquiry.
I don't know how to respond to it, because you see, what would it mean to live beyond history and ethics? This requires a very lengthy response, because you see, living beyond history and ethics, can you think of it? Can we think of it, living beyond history and ethics? Can we think of it as humans? I mean, can you help me to figure out what actually Nanak Ganguly's question is? Because as far as I can understand, this is a bit.
It's more of a reflection actually than a question. It's more of a thought, and and I think it's very complex, and it's more like a debate than really a question. For a few minutes that we have. Okay, I'm going to take up Vijay Singh's question.
Ethics, one thing. Whenever I think about ethics always involves the other person also. One cannot have this kind of position where others are not available. So once you bring in other, then only we can talk about ethics. And history, you can have a history in which you are out of history and still you are in history. At one level, history and time, they become one. I mean, I'm going back to great Hegel and trying to understand that you cannot simply go out of your time. You may not be recognized by history, you may not figure in history, but you have the possibility of being part of history. So living beyond history does not mean that you are always out of history. You have a chance of coming in back to history. Yeah. I don't know how I responded it. Yeah.
Right. Let's take up Vijay Singh's question. For others, Akbar and Rana Pratap are historical personages, but for us, the descendants of Raja Man Singh, we are branded as traitors to this day. So he's talking about himself and his family and people from his community. It is a humiliation we are subjected to repeatedly. This takes digs at us and continues unabated, while the fact remains that the descendants of Pratap and Mansingh have been marrying each other since the Battle of Haldi Ghati. So it's actually again a thought. Okay.
It's a
Uh,
good observation. It's a very good observation, I must say. Yeah. Very good observation, Digvijay Singh. Yeah.
Okay, Shamum and Ahmad asks, don't you think Jahangir himself was aware of the status and importance of the family of Rana Pratap in the process of empire building? When Rana Amar Singh surrendered, Khurram behaved respectfully, for which he was happy when Rana clasped his feet and forgiveness for his faults. He took his turban, I think, and placed it on his breast, or his head and placed it on his breast. Jahangir was happy of this gesture of Khurram, tried to mollify Karan Singh by gifts and other means.
My God, what are you saying, sir? I mean, this is going to create another controversy. I mean, so man, I mean, I'm not familiar with this thing. I mean, this is I'm not aware of it. But समीम साहब इस तरह की बातें कहने के पहले you should cite the source. Otherwise, we will be in trouble because we have taken part in this discussion.
I want to bring Professor Rizavi on board right now, but I can't. He would have had a very
Yeah,
interesting
I
take
know, I
on
know.
this. Okay, so yes. Okay, so I think a lot of people want to thank you. I'm going to take up a question. पीछे से कोई बहुत डिस्टर्ब हो रहे हैं अनिल जी काफी डिस्टरबेंस हो रही है
Let me read it. Ali Rajavi Sahab said, thank you, Hitendra, for a very interesting. I was very conscious speaking before him on this very topic, but I am really grateful to him to give me the chance to speak. I don't deserve this, but thanks to Ali Sahab, Rajavi
सर
Sahab, that
एक्चुअली ये टॉपिक सच में बहुत ज्यादा हमें शायद जब हम सीजन 2 शुरू करेंगे हम लोगों को बात करनी चाहिए ये ऐसे बहुत सारे लोगों को बुलाना चाहिए इट्स लॉन्ग ओवरड्यू दैट वी एक्चुअली एड्रेस दीज थिंग्स यू नो एंड ये कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ हिस्ट्री इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट
yeah,
and of
thank you.
course interpretation. So
Mhm.
I think okay, so Shamumji says that this is from Jahangir Nama. Sorry,
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
not familiar with this, and we can have like a medieval historian for anyone here who would like to comment on what Shamumji has written. Well, I think with this we've come to an end for this talk. However, I'd like to inform all of you that on Saturday we have a talk, as I mentioned earlier, by Dr. Radhika Chadda on Portuguese sources for to study medieval Indian history. And of course, the grand finale for season 1 is going to be on the coming weekend. On Friday, we have 21st of May. We have Dr. Nandini Chatterjee, who will be talking about household archives as sources of Mughal history. And I have a good news for those of you who are also watching today. We're coming soon with season 2. And with that, and with lots and lots of gratitude, I want to thank you, Professor Patel, for joining us and for agreeing to actually speak on this very important, extremely awaited topic.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Despite the tech issues, I think this was one of like clearly something that one of those talks that everybody wanted to hear. तो एक बार फिर से हम लोगों को कोई और फिगर्स के बारे में बात करनी चाहिए. I would love to hear about Shivaji at some point. So that's food for thought. Thank you. Good night.
Thank
And
you.
everyone, Eid Mubarak. I hope you're staying safe and indoors. Stay safe. Let's observe the strict rules of the lockdown until we can. And then, of course, once things are better, we will find ourselves doing more and more of these events, hopefully in person. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.